The proposal nobody wanted the galaxy was a strange place. Stars were born and died every day. Entire planets traded goods, secrets, and sometimes people. Aaron never thought he would be one of those people. He was human, born on Earth, raised in a small coastal city where the biggest problem was a broken coffee machine at the spaceport. He worked as a junior diplomat for the United Terran Alliance. His job was simple: smile, shake hands, and not start a war. But one day, his boss called him into a meeting. The boss was smiling, and that was a bad sign. Aaron, the boss, sighed. "You've been selected for a very special mission. It's a marriage." Aaron almost laughed. "Almost? You mean like pretend marriage? For politics?" The boss shook his head. "No, real marriage. The Virellan Empire has agreed to an alliance. Their princess needs a husband. You are compatible. Compatible." The word felt cold and medical, like he was being chosen for spare parts. The Virellans were a powerful alien race. Tall, silver-skinned, with glowing eyes like moonlight. They were graceful, calm, and distant. No human had ever married a Virellan before. There was a reason for that. The Virellans were infertile. They could not have children. At least, not for the last 5,000 years. This marriage would be purely political. A symbol of peace. At least, that's what they told him. The wedding happened 3 weeks later. No long romance, no dates, not even a proper conversation with his future wife. He saw her for the first time at the ceremony. Princess Lyra stood, tall in a shimmering silver dress that seemed to ripple like water. Her eyes, a pale silver blue, didn't look at him. They looked through him, like she was staring at some faraway horizon. When the vows were spoken, her voice was smooth, cold. She didn't smile. Neither did he. The galaxy's leaders clapped, cameras flashed, and news drones recorded every second. To the galaxy, it was a moment of history. To Aaron, it was a cage. The first weeks in the Virellan palace were quiet. Too quiet. Aaron was given a suite of rooms in the East Wing. Lyra stayed in the West Wing. They only met during official events, where they stood side by side, smiled for the cameras, and said all the right words. He noticed she had a private garden full of glowing alien plants. The air there smelled sweet but sharp, like metal and honey. She spent hours there alone. When he asked what she was growing, she only said, "They remember things." He didn't ask again. One night, Aaron couldn't sleep. The palace halls were dark, except for the soft blue glow from the walls. He walked quietly, his footsteps making no sound on the smooth floor. As he passed the throne room, he heard voices. Stopped. It was Lyra's voice, and another older, sharper. "The Queen. This cannot be," the Queen said. "It is impossible." "It is already happening," Lyra answered. Aaron felt his stomach tighten. "You have broken something sacred." The Queen hissed. "You know the cost." "I did nothing," Lyra said. "It happened on its own." There was a long silence. Then the Queen said, "If this is true, the prophecy is awake." Aaron didn't understand what they were talking about, but the word prophecy made the hair on his neck stand up. He took a step closer, but the doors opened suddenly. Lyra stepped out, her eyes catching the light. For a moment, he thought she looked afraid, but then she walked past him without a word. The next morning, things felt different. Servants whispered when he entered a room. Palace medics seemed busy, with something behind closed doors. Even the guards gave him strange looks, as if he was part of a secret he didn't know yet. At breakfast, Lyra was silent. She didn't touch her food. Her silver blue eyes were locked on the table, like she was trapped in a thought she couldn't escape. Aaron wanted to ask what was wrong, but something in her expression stopped him. Instead, he said, The galaxy is watching us, you know. Finally, she looked at him. For a moment, he saw something fear. Yes, but also wonder. Yes, she said softly. And soon they will see more than they ever imagined. That night, Aaron couldn't stop thinking about her words. He went to the palace library, a massive room with shelves that reached the ceiling. He searched the archives for anything about Virellan history, looking for the word that wouldn't leave his head prophecy. Finally, he found it in an old record. A story told in whispers. When silver meets blood, a new star will be born. It will unite the galaxy or burn it to ash. Aaron stared at the words. He didn't believe in prophecies, but he couldn't ignore the feeling in his chest that something was happening, something impossible, and somehow he was part of it. Asterisk, the cold palace, the palace was beautiful. In the same way deep space was beautiful, endless, silent, and cold. Aaron had been living there for a month now, but it still didn't feel like home. The walls glowed with soft blue light. The floors were so smooth you could almost see your reflection, and every corner smelled faintly of something metallic. The staff spoke in soft voices and moved quickly, like they didn't want to be seen. Sometimes Aaron wondered if they were avoiding him or avoiding something else. Lyra, his wife, was a mystery wrapped in silver skin. She spent most of her time in her private garden, among the glowing alien plants. He had seen her once, kneeling between two giant crystal flowers that pulsed with light. Her hands were on the soil, her eyes closed, like she was listening to something deep underground. When she noticed him watching, she stood quickly. "You shouldn't be here." Her tone was not angry. It was protective. Protective of what? Days passed in an odd rhythm. Official meetings, silent meals, long walks in the palace halls where Aaron swore he could hear whispers, though no one was there. One night, while he was heading back to his room, he saw two palace medics in white robes carrying a strange metal case. The case was sealed tight, and glowing faintly as they passed, one medic said quietly to the other, "Her readings are getting stronger." "It's not normal." Aaron slowed his steps. "Stronger? Readings?" The other medic noticed him and quickly looked away. They walked faster until they vanished around the corner. The next morning, Lyra didn't come to breakfast. Instead, the Queen appeared, something that almost never happened. She sat across from Aaron, her tall frame casting a shadow across the table. "You will leave the West Wing," the Queen said without preamble. "From today," Aaron frowned, "that's my wife's wing. Your presence there is no longer suitable." Her voice was smooth, but her eyes were sharp. "What's going on?" he asked. The Queen's expression didn't change. "Do not ask questions you don't want the answers to, human." And then she stood and left. That night, Aaron couldn't resist. He slipped into the West Wing when the guards changed shifts. The air there was warmer, heavy with the smell of Lyra's plants. The walls hummed softly, as if alive. He found her room and stopped. Lyra was sitting on the floor, breathing hard, her skin glowing faintly like moonlight through water. Her hands were pressed to her stomach. When she looked up, her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with shock. "It's impossible," she whispered, "but it's happening." "What's happening?" Aaron asked. She swallowed. "I'm pregnant." The words hit him like a comet. He stopped himself. "That's not possible. The Virellans can't." "I know," she said. "And yet, it's real." Her voice was trembling, but there was something else in it, too, something almost like awe. Before he could speak again, the door burst open. The Queen stood there, her silver eyes blazing. "Get away from her," she ordered. Aaron froze. The Queen stepped inside, her gaze locked on Lyra. "Do you understand what you've done?" "I didn't do anything," Lyra said. "It happened on its own." The Queen's face tightened. "No, this is not on its own. This is the prophecy. Iron looked between them. What prophecy? Neither of them answered. Instead, the queen turned to her daughter. We will fix this before it's too late. And then, without warning, she reached for Lyra's arm. Lyra jerked back, a sudden flash of light sparking from her skin. The queen's hand recoiled as if burned. They stared at each other in silence. The air in the room felt charged, almost. Humming dot, then the queen said, in a voice low and heavy, "You have no idea what you are carrying." Asterisk the impossible news by the next morning. The palace was different. The halls were busier. Guards in black armor replaced the usual gold. The windows in the west wing were sealed, and every entrance had double security. But Aaron didn't need anyone to tell him. He already knew the reason. Lyra was pregnant. It wasn't just impossible. It was dangerous. The news spread faster then. Light. At first, it was only whispers among the servants. The princess carries life. It's not possible. Unless the human, by midday, it wasn't just whispers. The palace communication channels were full of encrypted messages. Unmarked ships began appearing in orbit, just far enough to avoid being called hostile. Someone out there had heard the news. Lyra refused to stay in bed. She sat in her glowing garden, her silver skin even brighter now, as if her body was gathering light from the plants. Aaron sat across from her. "You should be resting," he said. She shook her head. "Resting won't change what's coming." "What is coming?" Aaron asked. "Everyone's acting like you're carrying a weapon, not a child." Lyra's eyes shifted to the sky above. "Because they don't know which it will be." That night, the queen summoned Aaron alone. The throne room was dark, lit only by a thin beam of blue light. She stood at the center, hands clasped behind her back. "You need to understand," she began. "This is not about you, or even Lyra. This is about the galaxy." Aaron crossed his arms. "You're not explaining anything." The queen's voice was sharp. 5,000 years ago, the Virellans lost the ability to create life. It was not an accident, it was a protection. From what? Aaron asked, her silver eyes locked on him. From the prophecy. She told him of an ancient war, before most species even had names. A war started by a child, born of two powerful bloodlines. That child's power bent stars and shattered worlds. The Virellans had sealed their own bloodline, ensuring it could never happen again. "Now," the queen said, "you have undone it, and the galaxy will never forgive you." Before Aaron could respond, an alarm blared. The queen tapped a comm device. "Report," a guard's voice crackled through. "Unknown ships. They've crossed the boundary line. No ID. No response to hails." The queen's face darkened. "They've come for the child." Aaron ran to the west wing. Lyra was standing in her garden, but the plants were moving, leaning toward her, as if pulled by invisible hands. The air shimmered around her. "They're here," she said quietly. "How do you know?" Aaron asked, catching his breath. Her eyes turned to him, glowing brighter than he'd ever seen. "Because I can feel them, and they can feel me." Outside, the first unmarked ship entered the lower atmosphere. It didn't look like a warship, no weapons visible. But Aaron had learned enough about politics to know that the most dangerous threats didn't always arrive with guns. In the shadows of the garden, a small drone landed silently. It projected a message into the air. "We will take the child. You will be spared if you comply." The message faded. The drone self-destructed. Aaron looked at Lyra. "We need to get you out of here." Lyra shook her head. "You can't run from this. It's in my blood. It's in the baby's blood. They will follow us anywhere." And then she said something that froze him to the core. "They're not the only ones coming. There's something older, and it's already awake." Asterisk whispers of the prophecy. The palace was no longer a palace. It was a fortress dot by dawn. The Virellan sky swarmed with defense ships. Barricades sealed the outer gates. Every corridor inside the palace was patrolled by guards in heavy armor. But no one felt safe. Not the guards, not the queen, not Aaron, and especially not Lyra, because the enemy was not just outside. The first threat came quietly. Palace cook, someone who had served the royal family for 30 years, was caught trying to deliver poisoned tea to Lyra's rooms. She didn't resist arrest. She didn't speak. But before she could be questioned, she bit down on something hidden in her mouth. Her body went still in seconds. That was the moment Aaron understood. This wasn't a political problem anymore. This was war. Rumors spread like fire. Some said the child Lyra carried was the Star-born, a being destined to unite the galaxy. Others claimed it was the World-breaker, a living weapon. Either way, the galaxy's most powerful factions wanted the same thing: control. And somewhere in the shadows, an even quieter rumor began to grow. A whisper that the child's birth would awaken something older than the stars. Late that night, Aaron found himself summoned to the palace library again, this time not by the queen, but by a stranger. She was cloaked in black, her face hidden, her voice a low whisper. "You are in the center of a storm, human," she said. "But the storm began long before you were born." Aaron's hand tightened into a fist. "Who are you?" The woman ignored the question. "The prophecy is not just a warning. It is a choice. The child will have the power to bend space itself. It will either open the gate of suns or seal it forever." Irene frowned. "What's the gate of suns?" Her hidden face tilted toward him. "Pray you never find out." And just like that, she vanished, slipping between the shelves like she'd melted into the air dot the next day. The first assassination attempt came from the skies. Sleek black vessel broke through the defense grid and aimed directly for the West Wing. Before the palace guns could lock on, it fired a single silver dart. The dart didn't explode. It unfolded mid-air into a swarm of tiny machines shimmering. Like dust in the sunlight, the machines weren't heading for the palace walls. They were heading for Lyra. Aaron burst into her garden just as the swarm poured through the windows. Lyra stood at the center, her silver skin glowing fiercely. The plants around her pulsed with light, releasing clouds of glittering spores. The swarm hit the spores and froze. Then, as if caught in invisible roots, the machines crumbled to ash. Aaron stared. "What did you just do?" Lyra's voice was calm, but her eyes told another story. "I didn't do it. The baby did." Hours later, the queen called a secret meeting in the war room. A holographic map showed dozens of ships gathering on the edge of Virellan space. Different factions, different worlds. All watching, all waiting. "They are not here to talk," the queen said. "They are waiting for the moment we are weakest. And when that moment comes, they will take her." Aaron looked at the queen. "Then we leave before that moment comes." The queen's eyes narrowed. "You think you can run from destiny? You can't. But maybe," she paused, studying him, "maybe you can choose how it happens." That night, Lyra sat by the garden's central tree, a massive, ancient thing with bark like silver glass. She took Aaron's hand and placed it on her stomach. "Do you feel it?" she asked. At first, he felt nothing. And then, a pulse. Not like a heartbeat. More like a wave, slow, steady, and vast, as if it came from far beyond her body. In that moment, Aaron realized something chilling. The baby didn't just exist in her womb. It existed everywhere. Above the planet, the black ships began to move, and far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something stirred in the darkness, something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. It had felt the pulse, too. And now, It was awake. Asterisk, the mother's final stand. The ATAC came at dawn. The Virellan sky burned red as dozens of ships tore through the atmosphere. The palace defense grid opened fire, but the attackers were fast darting between plasma bursts, like shadows dancing through flame. From the moment the first alarm sounded, the palace became a war zone. Guards rushed to the walls, turrets roared, and corridors shook under distant explosions. But Aaron knew the truth. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a hunt. They were here for Lyra Dot in the West Wing. Lyra stood by her glowing plants. Her? Breathing steady, but her hands clenched. "They're coming," she said softly. Aaron nodded. "Then we move. Now." Before they could take a step, the queen arrived dressed not in her regal silks, but in dark battle armor, the silver of her skin reflecting the light like a blade. "You will not leave this palace," she said. Aaron bristled. "If we stay, they'll take her." The queen's voice was cold. "If you leave, they'll take everything." Before Aaron could answer, a violent blast shook the room. The outer gates had fallen. The attacker's flesh and machine twisted together poured into the palace like a black tide. The queen activated a shimmering barrier around the West Wing. "This will hold for a short time," she said. "But there is something you must know." She turned to Lyra, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "I have been waiting for this day since before you were born." The words cut through the chaos. "Knew this would happen?" Lyra demanded. The queen nodded. "I am the last keeper of the Gate of Suns. The prophecy you carry is older than our bloodline. I married your father not for love, but because his lineage contained the dormant spark that could awaken our wombs." Her eyes flicked to Aaron. "And you, human, you were chosen for the other half of the spark." Aaron's pulse spiked. "You? Mean this was planned?" The queen's gaze hardened. Everything was planned, except the timing. Before they could speak further, the barrier flared. Enemy forces were pounding against it. But then, the pounding stopped. The queen frowned. "Why have they?" The answer came in the form of a soft, familiar voice from the doorway. It was Chiron, Lyra's personal guard, her most trusted protector. His armor was scratched, his hair loose from the fight. "My queen," he said. "Owing. The eastern corridor is clear. I can get them out." Lyra's eyes lit up with relief. Chiron, the queen's arm shot out in front of her. "No." Aaron frowned. "What's the problem?" "He's loyal." The queen's voice was ice. "He's too loyal. To someone else." Chiron's smile was slow and cold. "You always were too sharp, my queen." In one motion, he drew a blade not for the queen, but for Lyra. Aaron lunged forward, tackling him before the strike could land. The two crashed into a glowing planter, the alien plant bursting into shards of light. Asterisk, the queen's voice roared across the room. "He serves the Eclipsera, the faction that wants the child born under their control. They will keep her alive, but they will make her theirs." As Aaron fought Chiron, the barrier finally shattered. Enemy troops poured into the room. The queen moved like lightning, her armor a blur of steel and silver. She cut through the first wave, each strike precise and deadly. "Go," she shouted. "I will hold them here." Lyra hesitated. "Mother," the queen turned, her voice cracking not from fear, but from love. "I will not lose you to them. Not you, not the child." Aaron pulled Lyra toward the side passage the queen had unsealed with her armor's command code. Behind them, the battle raged, metal against metal, flesh against fire. The queen fought like she had nothing left to lose. And then, the roar came. It wasn't from the attackers. It wasn't from the palace defenses. It came from above, deep, ancient, and full of hunger. The ceiling shook. The air grew heavy. And in that moment, Aaron realized The older thing Lyra had felt in the garden had arrived. Asterisk. The birth in the stars, the Queen's last command echoed in Erin's ears as the side passage sealed behind them. Run. The corridor shook as something vast moved above the palace. Dust rained from the ceiling, and distant screams mixed with the sound of metal tearing like paper. Erin didn't look back. He held Lyra's arm, guiding her through the narrow maintenance tunnels. "Keep moving," he shouted. Lyra's steps faltered. "Erin, it's starting." "What's starting?" "Her." Hands clutched her stomach. "The birth." They burst into the landing bay. The Queen's private starship, a sleek silver vessel shaped like a blade sat, waiting with its engines glowing hot. A lone figure waved from the ramp. Captain Virellan, one of the few people the Queen trusted with her life. "She told me to get you off-world," Virellan marked. "Strap in. We've got company." As the ship launched, Erin saw the palace shrinking below them, half of it in flames, the other half disappearing into a black shadow dot. At first, he thought it was smoke. Then it moved. A massive shape, bigger than the palace itself, slid out of the clouds. It had no clear form, just twisting, writhing limbs of darkness that swallowed light wherever they touched Dot, and from somewhere deep inside it came the same low, bone-deep roar they had heard in the throne room. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. "It's here." The ship broke atmosphere, but the danger followed. On the radar, dozens of attack ships closed in. Some were Eclipsera, others unknown. "They're not fighting each other," Erin realized. "They're working together. For now," Virellan said grimly. "They all want the same thing." The ancient shadow wasn't slowing down. It rose from the planet's surface, its limbs stretching into space like reaching fingers. One of those fingers lashed toward them, miles long, yet moving like lightning. "Hold on!" Virellan shouted. The ship dove hard. The black limb missed them by meters, but where it passed, the stars themselves seemed to vanish. In the rear cabin, Lyra cried out, doubling over. "It's happening now," she gasped. "I can't hold it." Erin knelt beside her, his hands shaking. "We're almost safe. Just breathe. Focus." But the lights flickered. The ship's systems began to fail navigation. Weapons, even gravity, flickered in and out. Virellan's voice came over the intercom. "It's not me. It's your kid." Lyra's glow filled the cabin, brighter and brighter, until it hurt to look at her. The air felt heavy, as if the space around them was folding in. Through the viewport, the dying star they were passing suddenly flared, a burst of light so massive it painted the inside of the ship gold. And then the baby cried. The cry wasn't just sound. It was power. The shadow in pursuit recoiled, its limbs twisting violently. Every attacking ship was thrown off course, weapons failing. The dying star's light bent toward them, wrapping the vessel in a radiant shield. For a heartbeat, Erin thought they might be safe. Then a transmission broke through the static. It was the Queen's voice. "Erin, bring the child to me. Now, before the others recover. Before it finds you again." Her voice was urgent, but it wasn't the command of a ruler anymore. It was the plea of a mother. The transmission ended. The radar lit up with new contacts. The shadow was regrouping. And this time, it wasn't alone. Erin looked at Lyra, who cradled the glowing infant in her arms. Her voice trembled. "If we go to her, we might be walking into a trap." "And if we don't?" Erin asked. She looked out the viewport at the gathering darkness. "Then the galaxy ends." Asterisk. The insane twist the Queen's voice echoed in Erin's mind long after. The transmission ended. "Bring the child to me. Before it finds you again." He couldn't tell if it was a warning or a lure. The silver ship cut through space, the newborn's glow fading slightly as Lyra hummed softly to him. Aaron watched the radar. Dozens of hostile ships, all holding their distance now. They're not chasing, he murmured. They're waiting, Lyra said. Her eyes were fixed ahead, but her voice trembled. Waiting to see what we choose. 3 hours later, the Queen's coordinates came into view. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a station. It was a colossal structure floating in deep space. A black spire surrounded by rings of gold light, turning slowly like the gears of some ancient machine. What is this place? Aaron asked. The Gate of Suns, Lyra whispered. Aaron's stomach tightened. He remembered the hooded woman's warning in the library. Pray you never find out. The Queen was waiting on a landing platform. No guards, no weapons visible. Her silver armor still bore the scorch marks from the palace battle. When she saw the child, her hard expression cracked. Just for a second. You made it, she said. Aaron stepped off the ramp, keeping Lyra close. Tell us the truth. Why are we here? The Queen's gaze moved to the massive rings surrounding the spire. This gate, it is not just a door. It is a weapon. One that only the child can open or close. Lyra clutched the baby tighter. And you want him to open it? The Queen's eyes darkened. I want him to close it, forever, because what waits on the other side is older than the stars. Before Aaron could answer, the black shadow from the planet appeared, bursting into view like it had torn a hole in space itself. It didn't move toward them immediately. Instead, it coiled around the gate, as if protecting it. Aaron's mind raced. It's guarding the gate? The Queen's voice was cold. No, it is the gate's guardian. And if it kills us, the door stays closed. But if it kills the child... She didn't finish the sentence. The ground shook. A second shadow appeared smaller. Faster, but just as wrong. It lunged for the platform, smashing into the Queen before anyone could react. Aaron drew his weapon, firing into its mass. But the bolts vanished like drops into an ocean. The Queen roared in pain, and then, impossibly, she began to change. Her silver skin darkened, her limbs elongating, her eyes turning into pools of molten gold. Lyra gasped. Mother, what are you? I'm not just a queen, the thing wearing her voice said. I am the last piece of the guardian, and the reason your blood could carry this child. Asterisk, the baby began to glow again, brighter than before. The light pulsed 3 times, then stopped. The shadow recoiled. The Queen recoiled. Everything froze for a heartbeat. Aaron's voice cracked. What did he just do? Lyra's eyes widened. He chose. Chose what? Lyra looked up at the massive rings of the Gate of Suns as they began to turn. To open it. The gold light of the gate flared, blinding them. The shadow roared in fury. The Queen, half guardian, half ruler, lunged toward her own daughter, screaming, You don't know what's on the other side. But it was too late. The gate split open, and beyond it was not darkness. It was something looking back, something that smiled. Asterisk,